Hello and welcome, my dear students. I hope you all will be doing well. Well, today is the first lecture of the series of tutorials of operating system, and today we are going to discuss the introduction to operating system. So all the basic preliminaries and introductory concepts of operating systems will be discussed. So let's start without wasting any time. Okay, so let us see what is basically an operating system. Operating system is a type of system software which actually runs the computer hardware during the processing of data to get information. It controls the execution of the application program. Well, if we go into the basics of a software, we know that there are two types of software, the application software and the system software. The system software is a one which actually runs, or it is required to run the system, the overall computer system. Without a system software, a computer software or any hardware connected in the computer cannot run. Now, and the application software are those which are made for different type of users, and they are used and installed in your computer according to the requirements of the user. So unless and until we do not have the system software, the computer system is nothing more than a dumb piece of hardware. So in order to run the hardware, we need to install the system software. Now the first and the basic system software that we first install when we buy a new computer system is the operating system. So operating system is actually the type of system software, and that is the most important system software which actually enables the computer hardware to be run by the user. Without installing a operating system, you cannot take any advantage from any computer hardware. So when you buy a new computer system, the first thing you do is you install a operating system for that computer. So what is an operating system? Now summarizing it, it is actually a system software that is responsible for executing the application programs on the computer system, and also to enable the user to make use of all the computer devices, all the resources that are connected with the computer system. They all are controlled by the operating system. And unless and until you have not installed operating system on your computer, you cannot install or run any application program. Let's take an example of the word processor. If the basic purpose of having a computer for you is to do word processing and to do documentation and like letters and applications and different type of documents, you cannot do this until you have an operating system in your computer. You will need to have an operating system, and after having the operating system, you will be able to install any application program according to your requirement. Okay, let's moving forward. Operating system acts as an interface between the application program and the computer hardware. Now, here's a tricky question. Who performs the actual processing in computer system? Is that the software or hardware? Well, the answer to this is that the actual processing is performed by the hardware. That's hardware that actually runs the system. That is hardware that is actually doing all the basic functionalities of a computer system. But hardware cannot do anything unless and until you have installed the computer software on it. So the answer to the question is that actual processing is done by the hardware, while the software is actually used to enable the hardware to do processing. It is used to take out the work from the hardware. So when we say that operating system act as an interface between the application program and the computer hardware, it means that operating system lies between these two. The actual processing is done by the computer hardware, and we run different application programs on which actually make this hardware work. But unless and until we do not have an operating system, we cannot install any application program, and we cannot take any advantage of the computer hardware. It is responsible for each and every task that is performed by the computer system. Yes. As I said, unless and until you have installed the operating system, you cannot take any advantage of the computer system or any resource connected to it. So, because it is actually the main software that controls all the activities, from taking input to doing processing, from doing processing to storing the data temporarily or permanently, and from storing the data to giving it in the form of output to the user, and all the other activities, including the transfer of data between different devices. All these activities are controlled and performed by the operating system. So, summarizing it, operating system is actually a system software that is responsible of doing each and every activity that is expected from the computer system. And there are different examples of operating system. We have the Windows, the most famous one, and then we have the different versions of Windows. The most recently used or the most recently developed version of the Windows that is in the market is Windows 10. The Linux, Unix, Mac operating system, and different other operating system are also available. Let's move forward. What are the primary objectives of having an operating system? Well, there are two primary objectives of having an operating system. The first one is making a computer system easier to use, and the second one is to manage the resources of a computer system. Let's have a look at the first one, making a computer system easier to use. An operating system hides the detail of hardware resources from programmer and other users and provide them with a convenient interface for using a computer system. As I said earlier in the previous slide, that actual processing is performed by the hardware. Whatever you do, maybe it's the easiest or maybe it's the simplest processing that you can do. You can add two numbers. That is the simplest thing a computer can do. But even this processing is performed by the computer hardware. Now, what operating system does it, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that it acts as an interface. So it hides the hardware level complexity from the user. You can take any advantage from the hardware of the computer system without knowing the details of how different logics are implemented by the hardware. This is what is called the abstraction. Operating system provides you with a level of abstraction by hiding the hardware level complexities while you are performing your different tasks using the computer software. When you are running your application programs, it is actually the hardware that is doing all the processing, but the operating system is hiding all these activities. It provides you with the easy and convenient way to using the computer system. And the second thing that then the operating system does is the managing all the resources of a computer system. An operating system manages all the resources of a computer system. Efficient and fair sharing of system resources among users and or programs is a key goal of all the operating system. We have different types of resources connected with the computer system. Our processor, the CPU, central processing unit, is the most precious resource. Our memory, be it the primary memory or the secondary memory, it's a precious resource. All the internal connected parts, these are the resources. The input and output devices, these all are the resources, or any other peripheral devices connected to the computer system, all of them are resources. It's the responsibility of operating system to manage all these resources. And managing and coordinating involves controlling all the things relating to these resources. Also, it includes the sharing of resources among different processes. An example of this may be a simple example: when you run a program, it requires memory. So this is the responsibility of the operating system, that memory, which is a precious resource, has to allocate the memory to the process and then deallocate it once the process is completed. So all the resources are managed and coordinated by the operating system directly, and it's the responsibility of operating system to do this. Let's move forward. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning in the last two slides. This is the diagrammatic presentation of that thing. That at the lower level or the lowest level, it is the hardware that is doing all the processing. But at the next layer or the upper layer, it's the operating system that is actually hiding all the complexities at the hardware level by actually interacting with the hardware. And on top of the operating system, it's the application programs that are run by the users, which are on the top of the layered hierarchy. So we can describe this diagram in a way that that's the user which install the application programs. Application program actually, in order to be run, they actually communicate with the operating system. They do not deal with the hardware level complexities. They application programs actually communicate with the operating system, which in turns communicate with the hardware and hides the hardware level implementation complexities from these application programs. So application programs are run on the operating system. So that is basically the working of operating system, that it is allowing the user to run different application program according to their requirement, and also taking the functionality or the making the hardware run, and also hiding the complexity of the working of hardware from the user and the application. I hope it is clear. Let's move forward. Okay, so what are the basic functionalities of the operating system? Now we have to look in the detail of each and every functionality. The main functions of operating system are: it acts as a resource manager, it acts as a command interpreter, it acts as a controller, it acts as an interface, which is already explained. It performs the process management, it performs the file management, and it's give the facility of protection. That is, we're talking about the security. Okay, so let's have a look at one by one. Okay, so as I mentioned, and it is described in detail in the previous slides as well, that one of the key responsibilities or the functionalities of the operating system is to do the resource management. The different resources of the system include, as I have mentioned in the list as well, the CPU, the processor, the memory, the I/O devices, secondary storage devices, and the memory management. The memory, they're talking about the primary memory of the computer system. So it is the operating system who determines who will use the resource of a computer and what they will see it when they will use it, and resolve the conflicting requests for computer resources from various users or program. As you know that in modern operating system we can run multiple tasks simultaneously. So when multiple tasks will be run on the computer at the same time, there will be definitely a conflict among the sharing of resources, conflict for the sharing of resources, and that is the responsibility of the operating system to resolve this conflict and to enable the multiple simultaneous execution of different programs. So the first and the very important functionality of operating system is to be a resource manager. Okay, the second responsibility, and a very important one, is a command interpreter. We have different input devices, the most common of which are the keyboard and the mouse. We actually use these input devices, especially the keyboard and the mouse, to enter different kind of commands into the computer. Even when we are clicking the right and left buttons of the mouse, that we are actually entering or we are sending a command. When we enter or when we press a key in the keyboard, we are actually sending a command. Now it's the responsibility of the operating system to interpret this command and to perform the action accordingly. So all the commands entered into the operating system by the users, they are directly sent to the operating system, and the operating system interprets, understands its meaning, decode the command, and performs the appropriate action. An example of this is deleting something from the hard disk, which is a secondary storage. And in the previous slide, it is mentioned that the secondary storage is actually the responsibility of the operating system to deal and manage all the secondary storage. So if you are deleting something, we actually enter a command, and rest, it's the responsibility of the operating system to actually delete that thing or that file from the hard disk. The next is that it acts as a controller. The operating system must always be in control of the computer resources. If a program crashes or any type of error, control should return to the operating system, which should take appropriate action. Now, the most important thing related with the concept of control is the controlling the error situation or the problem situation. For example, if a program crashes due to some reason, now what we want to do, we want our system to crash, we want our system to get shut down, or we want the operating system to take an appropriate action and inform the users. So if any kind of problem occurs, it's the responsibility of the operating system to actually handle the situation gracefully. Yes, it is a machine. Computer is a machine. The problems are due to occur. The errors are due to occur. But to handle the errors and the problems and to perform the appropriate action, it is actually the responsibility of the operating system. It provides us with different types of error messages and different messages or different possible actions that can be taken by the user in order to perform the action of controlling the error or the problem. But it's basically the responsibility of operating system even to enable the user by providing it with the different options that can be performed. So operating system acts as a controller and controls all the resources as well as the error and the problem conditions that occur in the using of these resources. I hope it is clear. Okay, it's act as an interface. It has been described and explained in the earlier slide that an operating system is an interface between the user and the hardware of a computer system. The next thing is the process management. The operating system keeps track of the processors and the status of the processes. It decides who will have a chance to use the processor. It also takes care of creation and deletion of processes and providing mechanism for synchronization and communication among processes. Now, first of all, we need to understand that what is a process. Remember that different programs that are installed in our computer or that are present in the memory are permanently stored in the secondary storage. And when we want to run a program or a set of programs, these programs are transferred from secondary storage to the main memory. Now, which program will be transferred from the secondary storage to the main memory? This is the responsibility of operating system to decide it. And when a program is actually transferred to the main memory in order to be executed, it is assigned resources. And a program in the state of being executed and it is assigned resources, it is called a process. So a process is actually a program with resources. So this is the responsibility of the operating system to manage all the related things with the process, starting from assigning it the resources, assigning it to the memory and placing it in the memory, and then providing it with the different resources like giving it the CPU time, making it wait in the ready queue, and terminating it gracefully. So in order to run the programs, we bring them into the memory, they become processes, and the processes are directly managed by the operating system. In the coming lectures, we are going to have a detailed look in the complete chapter of the processes, in which we will discuss that how these processes are run, how they are scheduled to run, how they enter into their different states before getting terminated. So we'll discuss it in the detail in the coming lectures as well. Okay, the next responsibility of the operating system is the file management. There are two types of files, data files and program files, which are stored on the hard disk and other secondary devices. If you rename, move, create, backup, or delete the file, then OS manages such changes and helps to locate and gain access to it. Remember that in the secondary storage, the data is stored in the form of the file. So when we use the word file, we are actually referring to the secondary storage. And when a file is stored on the secondary storage, there are different actions that can be performed on it. And some of them include the rename, move, creating the backup, or removing it from the secondary storage, called the deletion process. All these actions or all these different tasks that can be performed on the file by the user are actually supported and governed by the operating system. So that is the responsibility of the operating system to enable the user to perform all these actions. The next thing is the protection. Now this is very important. For protection, we mean the security, the level of security provided to the users for their application program and the data and the instructions stored in the computer, to protect the resources and information of our computer system against destruction and unauthorized access. This is completely the responsibility of operating system. The better the protection provided by the operating system, the more it will be reliable. Because definitely we want our computer system and everything that is present in the computer system safe from the unauthorized access. So different types of locking mechanism and security protocols are implemented by the operating system in order to restrict it from having unauthorized access by an unauthorized person. And then the memory management. Now by memory management, we refer to the primary memory of the computer. As I said earlier, when a process is run, it is brought into the memory. To allocate it the memory, to allocate a memory to different processes, and to deallocate it from the processes, to divide the memory, to divide the memory into blocks, and all these things related to the memory, they are directly performed by the operating system. This is wholly and solely responsibility of the operating system to do the memory management. It involves the virtual memory, which is the latest concept. It involves maintaining different processes in the memory, and there are different kinds of other things which we will be discussing in the upcoming lectures in the memory management chapter. So these are basic the responsibilities of the operating system. Well, this was the introductory lecture of operating system. I hope it will be clear. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any kind of question, or if you want to discuss something, you can write me down. I will definitely try to answer these questions. Thank you very much. Please do not forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. Till our next lecture, thank you and goodbye.